Hi guys, I'm Caitlin,
And I'm Emily.
and this is Life Unfiltered. I'm excited for this podcast, and that we've been able to do this even though I'm in Florida and you're all the way in Kansas.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
kind
in
of
Wichita.
wild. Um, but it's just wild how all of our life, well, not all of our life, we met in middle school, at a middle
Yes.
school church camp,
Yeah.
but it
We
wasn't
actually
intentional.
didn't know each other that at
Yeah,
that point though. But we had like really close mutual friends that
we
we
did.
would
We seem to always run like we went to separate schools, same district, but like we always
yeah.
ran with like the same groups of people. So our lives like constantly crossed, but we never were really tight like throughout
Right.
basically until we were married.
Yeah. We would I remember there was like times we would go to the same event
Mm-hmm.
and you and I would, talk to the same people because we were both pretty close with the same people, but
Yeah.
then you and I never really like we wouldn't hang out one on one or anything.
No. I
So
mean occasionally like in the summers I remember like we'd go to like neighborhood pools and like we'd hang out there. Um but I don't think it was until we both went to K State and we got put in the same dorm. And then your roommate was my sorority sister. You remember
yeah,
that?
but we like weirdly went to prom together too.
Oh my gosh,
Do you remember
yes.
that?
Yes. Was it junior and senior year?
No, it's just junior year.
Just junior year. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went same prom groups. Man, so our life just constantly just spiraled,
Yeah.
which is so
Yeah,
cool.
and our
And
dates were
then
like really good friends and everything.
yeah. So
But
then like after college we went you graduated before me.
yes.
You've moved back to Wichita and became a
Mhm.
teacher. I was finishing my teaching degree. You moved into those apartments, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden I was like, hey, my now husband and I, we were engaged. And so he was getting ready to deploy. And so I was like, well, we need an apartment. So that way when you get back, like we're getting married and like we need a place.
Yeah.
And we moved into the buildings next door to each other.
Yeah, we would hang out cuz I felt comfortable with you because in college we would do bachelor nights.
Yeah.
And so I was like, ooh, maybe Caitlin, like, maybe now that we're kind of in the same apartment complexes, we can kind of do the same. And we
Just
would go
hang
out
out.
to dinner or whatever because
Or we would
we knew
just go to
each
the
other and a little bit
pool
more
or like,
comfortable with each other.
yeah, we'd order pizza or like literally do anything and just hang out. I loved
Yeah.
that. Well, and then Kanan and I were engaged, and then you and Cameron got engaged.
Yeah. When did you and Kanan get engaged?
We got engaged November of 2017.
Okay. We got engaged, I think, November of 2018.
Yeah, because then Kanan deployed,
Right.
and then I was like, "Well, I gotta plan a wedding. I gotta plan a wedding now." While he was gone, and then I was like, "Okay, I think I'm gonna do it Memorial Weekend or maybe the weekend after." And then you guys got engaged. And at this point, like we had started becoming pretty close,
Mm hmm.
which was really awesome. And then you were like, "Well, I'm gonna do the weekend after Memorial Weekend," and I said, "All right, well, I'll just do the weekend of Memorial." And
Yeah,
so we
because we
kind of
had our date
do,
the day before. I think we like knew our date, our wedding date, before we even got engaged,
which is
because we had to book
hilarious.
the church.
I love it. I love that. But then we got to, I guess, kind of plan weddings together. Like we really just vented about how stressful planning weddings were.
Yeah, I would come to your apartment because no, I would. I think at that point I moved back to my parents, but I would still come over and we would
Yeah,
talk about
and
like
we would do
all the
like,
things that you were planning and I was
yeah,
planning and.
or it'd be like, oh, I found these people for flowers. Who are you using? Or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was, like all the little stuff. Um, yeah, that was pretty fun. And then we got to go to each other's weddings, which was really cool.
Yes,
You never would
I
have
think.
thought.
Did you guys move your honeymoon for us?
I
I
think we
can't remember.
planned on leaving like that Saturday because we were like, we don't want to leave for our honeymoon like the next day. Like, we just want to like chill for a bit. And then we are like, we'll leave a week later. And then I was like, ooh, Emily's getting married that Saturday. We can't leave that Saturday. So I think we went like the week after, like the next Saturday after that.
Oh, okay.
So I think we did kind of move our honeymoon. Like, we hadn't officially booked it, but I think that was the date that we were planning on. And then we were like, I want to go to Emily and Cameron's wedding.
Yeah, I remember Cameron and I were super excited when we went to your guys' wedding because, uh, yeah, you guys were right before us. So
Yeah.
I remember we were sitting there thinking like, oh, this is the last event before we get married.
And you're like, oh my
And
gosh, it's a week until our wedding,
yeah,
right? Like, how cool is that? I think that's really
yeah,
fun.
it was crazy.
And then, I mean, gosh, flash forward, how many years was it before you and Austin, or you and Cameron, wanted Austin? Essentially, wanted to talk about having kids.
Yeah, so we waited um, for the perfect time around COVID. So about a year after we got married,
Okay.
we started having conversations about how we were going to build our family, since we knew it was going to be a little bit different,
Yeah.
and there was going to be paperwork and stuff involved. We waited for
Yeah.
about a year before we decided to kind of talk about it and start that process. But what about you guys?
We had talked. Um, we were like, okay, let's try. We got married in 2019, and then 2020 hit, COVID hit, and we were like, well, why don't we wait for like the world to chill out, and then we'll like circle back to
Yeah,
this
we didn't
conversation.
make that decision. We just we just went for it.
Well, yours is a little different. Like,
Yeah,
you go into the whole process and you're like, okay, now we sit and wait. Like, we don't know if
yeah,
it's going to be tomorrow. We don't know if it's going to be 2 years from now. Like, so
right.
it was a whole different process for both of us, right?
Yeah,
Um, and then I think on our 2 year wedding anniversary, so in 2021, we were like, okay, maybe we should start talking about like having kids. Like, what's that going to look like for us? How long is that going to take for us? Because I was told at 15 that I had PCOS, and they were like, that's, you're probably going to have a hard time having kids, like getting
mm,
pregnant and staying pregnant. And so I always knew that, and Kanan knew that. Like, we talked about it like when we were dating. Um, and so I think it was 2021 when we were like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. Um, and then he got deployed. So he left. We started talking, I think, February of 21 ish. Of like, hey, like, 2 years is coming up. Like, do you think we should start having kids? And then he got deployed July of 21. And so we were like,
oh wow.
maybe we don't have kids for a little while. Like, because you're not going to be here. We don't know what that's going to look like for me. Like, doctor's appointment wise, if I'm going to be able to keep the pregnancy, all of the things. And so we were like, okay, we'll just wait until you're back. So he gets back January of 22, and we were like, okay, like I I at that point had gone to the doctor, and the doctor was like, I mean, you seem healthy, like everything's coming back, like you're good. So like I'm giving you the green light, like you need to go and just like try to have a kid. And we were like, okay, sounds good. We That's when we got pregnant. We got pregnant at the end of February of 22, I believe. And then we lost the baby in May. And so I was 11 weeks when we lost the baby. Um, Ended up having to have surgery and like went back to, I at that point changed OBs. Um, and my new OB was like, okay, we got to do a whole new panel on you. Like, I want to figure out what's going on. Like, we need to do ultrasounds, all the things. Ended up getting pregnant again that fall, lost that pregnancy as well, was on fertility medicine, all of the things. And so at this point, I think your paperwork had, the ball had been rolling for a while, and you guys actually got your little fun surprise in what, July of 21? No, July of 22.
22.
Yeah.
Because we put our paperwork in, like, I want to say the summer of 2020, or like that fall.
And when
And
you say
then,
paperwork,
sorry, yes. So when I say paperwork, I mean we started the process of looking at attorneys and signing over with a specific attorney in Wichita
mm-hmm.
to go ahead and like start our book that would be shown to birth mothers, because I knew when I was 12 that we were gonna have to that I was going to have to not be a natural mother, that I would either have to adopt or figure out what
Yeah,
that
a
process
different
would look
option.
like for me
Mhm.
eventually. Because at that point, I don't believe we knew fully what my options would be as I got older.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we signed with an attorney that summer after meeting with a couple people who had been through the adoption process.
Hmm.
I mean, it was COVID, so we like FaceTimed and stuff people to see kind of what their experience, who they went with, and then we got our paperwork in with an attorney to start our book the summer or the fall of like 2020.
Hmm.
And then we waited like a whole year. Um,
Before any
and
traction or anything.
yeah, so we got a couple situations that popped up here and there, but
Yeah.
nothing that we felt comfortable with. And after praying about it as a couple and after thinking about it, we decided that those were not going to be what our family needed. And um, yeah, we actually met with the organization that ended up going through with Austin and our most recent adoption. We met with her, I think, like the summer 2021, and then got him like, or no, the spring of 2021.
And then
So
got him
maybe it
that
wasn't a
summer,
quite year, but then got him 3 months later.
which is wild to me. I vividly remember like coming over. I think it was the day after you brought him home. I have pictures. And I
Yeah,
think Cameron's like at the Y working out or something. And I was like, Cam, coming over. I'll be there.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I remember coming over and hanging out and just being like, in such, I can't even explain it. Like, it was like, I was so excited for you and Cameron. And like, the joy I had that you had baby Austin was like, unmeasurable, but like it was like this huge wave of like grief at the same time because I was like, oh my god,
yeah,
this is what could have been. And so like it was just a, I don't know, it was a whirlwind of just mixed emotions for me. And so it was, I remember it being really hard for me, but like I was so excited for you at the same time. Because then I also remember Kanan and I came over for a game night, and it was Kanan's first time meeting Austin.
yeah.
And it was the day before we were leaving for a vacation, which was supposed to be our baby moon.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like all of this is coming back that I'm remembering. And so, like, just the whirlwind of like your journey, like figuring out, like, oh my God, you guys are parents now, and like our journey of like, where does this put us?
Yeah,
Like, it was such a crazy time in both of our lives. Like, you becoming a mom, me still having that hope, but like the reality of like my friends now having kids is like setting in. I vividly remember that. And so
yeah,
I really think that's where like our drive and like our passion and like this just, I don't know, internal call of like why we started this podcast came is like
yeah,
through all of these like challenging yet very joyous experiences that we've both had now. Um, I don't know. I just feel like, especially like when you went and you put in like your papers, like you just talked about like how you were able to reach out to other people and realize like, oh, there's a lot of other people that have been through the whole adoption process and like, what does that look like and who do I use and who can I trust and like
yeah.
all of that.
Well, and I'm so excited to get into that eventually down the road.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's special about you and I's relationship, and one of the reasons you and I kind of you and I decided to do this together,
Mm-hmm.
was because we both experienced that joy and that grief for each other,
Yeah.
like in so many levels. That's crazy that I appreciated just how vulnerable you and Kanan were with
Mm-hmm.
Cameron and I, and just like my passion for listening and like understanding what people are going through, because you guys like kind of did the same for us. Like when we were grieving,
Yeah.
like you guys sat and just listened to us kind of talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with what we experienced. We listened to the
Yeah.
good, bad, and ugly that comes with what you guys experienced, and you and I just both really, really felt that the communities that we kind of sought
Hmm.
after and wanted
Yeah.
were not necessarily there in a very public way.
Yeah.
And you and I felt like, hey, this is something that most people don't talk about, but
Mhm.
everybody experiences,
Yeah, it's
and
wild
everybody
how
kind of
many people.
processes.
It's been crazy how many people, like, since you and I have opened up, like, about me miscarrying, about being on fertility meds, and then having a successful pregnancy, and then, like, you going through the whole adoption process and the whirlwind that came with us being so vulnerable with it, with so many people. And I'll go into this later on a different episode, but, like, having it out there just adds a whole nother layer. And there have been so many people who have come forward to you and I have been like, hey, this is my story. Like, this is what I had to go through. It's not what you did. It's not what, your friend had to do, but like, this is what I've endured. Like, just that way, like, there's hope, or like, there's somebody else out there. And so we've had so many people, and not just women, but like, I've had guys even come out and tell me, like,
Yes.
hey, this is something my wife and I are going through, or, this is something that we're really struggling with. And like, we watched you go through it, or we've seen Emily go through it. Um, Jason, you remember Jason from high school?
Mm-hmm.
Came forward and was like, hey, the fact that you came forward with this is like huge to me. And like, we're going through this process. And like,
Wow.
I've had people like say, oh my God, I didn't know Emily had to adopt. And like, I've had to adopt, or my friends had to adopt. And they're like, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that we've seen her go through it. And so the fact that I mean, even just on like our small itty bitty community, because it is very small, that we've learned,
Yeah.
we have impacted and outreached so many people. And so now, like what you said, like, people just don't talk about it. And like, it's
Right.
kind of taboo. Like, if you think about it, like, people are like, oh no, we don't.
Well, and I've experienced that because I was not able to keep my story quiet.
Yeah.
Just with the process, like we had to put, and again, we'll go into this, but
Yeah.
we had to put like our book out on Facebook. We had to do all this stuff where it was like
Mm-hmm.
very public. And so one of the huge honors that I have had is people really just like you randomly coming up to me because they haven't had to feel like, oh, she's trying to get, like
Yeah.
she's really having to go through
Like,
a
she's
very
having to be
non-conventional
vulnerable.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And and I've just really appreciated people coming up to me and hearing their stories. Like you said, it's not my story.
Yeah.
It's not the same experience that I've been going through. It's not Nobody's story that I have heard has been the same. And
Which is amazing. Like, if you think about how many people we know, or even how many people are on this planet, the fact that no two stories are exactly the same, and there's so many people who have like these stories that need to be told, and these stories that
yeah,
need to be shared, because so many people, I know, at least when I was going through like all of the fertility treatments and like the miscarriage and all of that, like, I was like, I'm alone. Like, I don't know anybody else. I know nobody who's gone through any of this. Nobody's talked about it. I'm by myself. And I knew deep down, like, I knew I wasn't the only person, but I had nobody that I could be like, oh, I'm going to call Emily because Emily's gone through this. Like,
right.
nobody had talked about it. Nobody had said anything. And so I think with us doing this podcast, my goal, at least, and I know we've talked about it, it's kind of our mission of this, so to speak, like, mission statement, is we don't want people to be alone. We want people to know, like,
Right.
they have somebody, like, somebody's out there. They may have not fought the exact same battles, but they fought something similar, or they know somebody who's fought something similar. And so what we really want to do with this whole goal of this podcast, and the reason why we're doing it, is that way we can get people to understand, like, it's not a taboo subject. We can talk about it. And there's a huge community out there of so many people, men and women, that are going to be there to support you, like, through it all. And so,
well, and we're gonna have guests that will touch on all different types of things. Like,
yes.
and I'm not saying that the person listening to this one is going to, obvious, like, no one's, like you said, gone through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But my hope is, and what your hope is as we kind of go through these stories with people, these crazy stories that, you know, have all these facets to it, people can take something from it and connect with, oh, hey, that might be either something I want to try, or that is something that I went through when I did that too.
Getting
it
some
may not
comfort.
have been the same way, but hopefully just to be able to give people a community to ask questions, and be able to say, hey, you had a guest on that was talking about this, you know, these are my questions to them, and be able to respond, and also to give this platform as one for people that want to share their story.
Absolutely.
Right? So being able to have people kind of write into us or tell us, like, hey, this is something that I've gone through. Would this be something you guys would be interested? Like, of course.
Yeah. The answer is most of the time going to be absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we want to share your story.
Right. And just for them to experience the ability to not allow it to hold them back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we have people lined up. We have single moms lined up. We have adopted parents lined up. We have social workers. We have people in the medical field. We have dads who've been through miscarriage and loss, dads who've been in the delivery room, because that's a whole experience in itself. You know, we have miscarriages. We have IUI, IVF, international. I mean, the amount of stories that we already have is wild to me, and the amount of topics that we're going to be able to cover is incredible. So I'm so looking forward to it. I cannot wait to get some of these episodes out. I know we've got a few already lined up. Our hope is to potentially do this bi-weekly, just because, you know, you and I both have kids of our own, and I know everybody else has a life too, so it's going to be really something that we're going to anticipate is bi-weekly. If we can do it more, awesome, but I think that's our goal. And so every other week, Life Unfiltered should have a new story out there with somebody else telling their perspective of their challenges and situations that they've overcome or that they're currently enduring.
And if you guys have a story or something you guys, or a person you would like to hear from, someone that's going through something, like an example would be like, hey, I'm having to go through IUI, or I would like to know more about this specifically, like labor and delivery, what kind of things should I expect, or whatever you guys want.
Anything postpartum.
Yes.
All of it.
Right.
2 under 2.
Yeah. Write in, let us know, and we're going to talk about it here on this podcast, and hopefully it will be a space where you guys can tune in and not feel so alone.
And it's going to be, like our name is, it's going to be unfiltered. It's going to be, I don't want to say raw, but it's going to be someone who's going to be real, and they're going to tell us exactly how it was. And so we're hoping that that brings somebody comfort, or, you know, just feeling like they've been seen. But our next episode is going to be...
It's going to be about you, Caitlin.
It is! So it will be kind of about pregnancy loss and social media and navigating that. It will be interesting. Lots of questions lined up. Emily and I are going to talk about it. But yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Tune in for that one.
Yep. So we will hear from, or you will hear from us in a couple weeks.